Oh my goodness, it is so good to be filled up by the sound of that organ this morning. Happy Easter, First Universalist. Woohoo! Welcome to the First Universalist Church of Rochester, where we are called to nurture the spirit and to serve the community. Whoever you are welcome here. Wherever you come from, you are welcome here. Whomever you love, you are welcome here, and whatever your relationship to Jesus of Nazareth and to the stories we have told and heard again and again, you are welcome here. All of you are welcome here. It is good to be together this morning. Each Sunday when we gather, we acknowledge with respect the Seneca Nation, keepers of the Western Door, and part of the Haudenosaunee people on whose ancestral lands First Universalist now stands. This morning, we especially welcome you here as we are worshiping yet again in a new way. We are a community of seekers, both online and in person, and we are choosing to worship in person with masks on. This morning, we have shifted our seating. We have both physically distant options as well as options where folks can sit a little bit closer. This is a new arrangement, so please let us know what you think in the days ahead. If you're here for the first or second or third time this morning, we especially welcome you. Thank you for making your way here to our sanctuary or to our online worshiping community. We have a visitors form that can be found in the chat online or in your order of service. Please fill out this form so we can offer you a welcome beyond this worship service. I'd like to make a special invitation, especially to those of you who are here who are new, to join us on Saturday, April 30th at 9:30 a.m. for our Path to Membership class, a space to learn more about our church and what becoming a member here is all about. It would be wonderful to see you there. Before we take a moment to turn to our neighbors here in the space and also to turn to our neighbors online, let us take a moment first to turn towards Emma and towards our green phone camera to greet our online worshiping community with a wave. If you are here online, we invite you to pop into the chat and to offer a greeting. For folks here in our sanctuary, please rise and offer your neighbor a greeting this morning. Oh, dear ones, it is hard to pull you back from these beautiful connections, but we do need to sing. And we do need to sing together, so I'll invite you to rise in body or in spirit. It is Easter after all, so we shall be singing hymn number 268, Jesus Christ is risen today. Please join us in singing, especially the Alleluias. Jesus Christ is risen today. Alleluia. Earth and heaven in chorus say,
Morning. The Passover Seder, a ritual retelling of the story of the Jewish people's flight from bondage in Egypt, was observed by Jews around the world this weekend. During the Seder, an extra glass of wine is poured for the prophet Elijah. And there's a moment when somebody gets up from the table to open the front door for Elijah, just in case he happens to be passing by and decides to pop in. If Elijah did show up, it would be a sign, according to Scripture, that the establishment of God's kingdom on earth, a world of peace and justice, is drawing near. Elijah has been called the mysterious stranger who arrives at just the right moment to bring hope to those in despair. Opening the door is a cool ritual, but I've been to many Seders since I married into a Jewish family, and to tell you the truth, nobody leaves the door open very long. Would you? I mean, what if a stranger did come in? They might be dangerous. They might want or need something that we are not prepared to give. They might have COVID. So for many reasons, we live ever more cut off from each other. But with the doors closed, how will we meet the stranger who might be the one to bring us good news? This, I think, is one reason we come to this beloved community at First Universalist. We need a place to welcome the stranger and to know ourselves welcome. A place to open the doors of our hearts to hope and to help each other imagine and create a world of peace and justice. In the name of the larger love that holds us and connects us, come, let us worship together. If Beth there's come light our chalice. As Beth lights our chalice at First Universalist Church, and you light a chalice in your own home, will you join me in saying our chalice word in unison? May we be a people of welcome, here to grow in heart and mind and spirit, and may we reach out to serve our community. Please rise now in body or spirit and join in our affirmation of faith and the doxology. Love is the light of God's truth. The quest for truth is its appetite, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls should grow in harmony with the source and meaning of life. Thus we covenant with each other and with all. Once a month, we share our Sunday offering with an organization that has been chosen by the congregation to receive our social justice plate. This month, as Earth Day approaches, your gifts will go to the Citizens Climate Lobby. Citizens Climate Lobby is a nonpartisan grassroots organization that works at the state and national level to address climate change through education and advocacy. The offering will now be given and gratefully received. And this week, we're going back to our ritual of having the ushers come around to collect the offering during the sanctuary. So you can remain
Many of you know that I am a story connoisseur, but I am also a children's Bible connoisseur. And I wanted to just point out, as I was looking through my collection, if you are ever looking for a very Unitarian Universalist leading children's Bible that looks for the stories that involve women and a not white Jesus, I'm happy to help you with this procuring process. I love poring over all the children's Bibles at some of the local stores to find just the right one for my local 8-year-old, which I've always thought is the age of getting your own. So our story today is the Easter story as it goes on. So Jesus and his followers, his disciples, came to Jerusalem. Why? For Passover. And the disciples were actually like, no, we really shouldn't go because, they're going to get you. Because Jesus' message was so radical about who was included and who God loved and how it was not okay that even the religious hierarchy was manipulating and oppressing the people. If you go there, it's going to be dangerous. Just, no, I have to go there. I have to be there. I want to be there for Passover. And I can't run away from danger. Everyone needs to hear the message. And so we know what happened. It was dangerous. He was turned in by the religious authorities to the Roman Empire. He was killed for sharing the message that everyone is loved, everyone is worthy of love, and that it is not okay to treat others as less than. And then can you imagine the devastation of his disciples, of those who had heard this message? Does it mean it's over? Is it over now? But they had heard that story. He had told them that if I should die, 3 days later I will rise again. Now they had seen some miracles, hanging out with Jesus. To rise from the dead, that's something else. And so the day after Jesus died, it was part of Passover, it was a holy day, and so no one could leave their homes to come and visit. And 3 of the women disciples came to the tomb on the 3rd day, and they wondered. And depending on the gospel that you read, the most amazing one I hear, besides just coming there and the tomb is rolled, the rock is rolled aside, is that lightning came down and moved the stone aside, and the guards passed out. Because, whoa, I get that. And then an angel appeared to say, Jesus isn't here anymore. It's as he said, he has risen from the dead. Go and tell your friends that he has gone ahead of you to Galilee. It's a different place. Go to a different place and leave them there. But on the way, the women, filled with fear and excitement and awe, went running back to tell their friends. And in this one version of all the Gospels, Jesus was there. Jesus met them on the road. The women not only heard the news first, but they saw him first. And he wasn't a ghost. They could touch him. They could embrace him and say, you're back. We love you. We missed you. Jesus said, I love you too. Go ahead and go and tell our friends that I will meet them in Galilee. They went ahead. And of course, some of them believed and some of them doubted. Could this be true? Can you imagine this happens in our lives, right? I think the women have gone crazy. I think we hear that. So the disciples, they went to Galilee and they waited with a barred door. The door was closed because they were afraid that the authorities were after them next. So the door was closed. It wasn't open for Elijah, and Jesus, by many people, is seen as the reincarnation. And Jesus appeared just among them in the room. He didn't have to come through the door. And that is when Thomas, who doubted, touched his hands at his side. And Jesus said, now you believe because you've seen me. But blessed are those who believe and they don't see for themselves. And then finally, actually, in the middle of this, sandwiched in, 2 of the disciples went to a town called Emmaus. And as they were walking on the road, a man appeared and was walking with them. And said, oh, what are you talking about? Haven't you heard what everyone's talking about? The whole story of Jesus. And Jesus, they don't realize it's him, is saying, oh, look at all these scriptures that tell you that this is what was going to happen, but you don't believe. And the men are like, we so enjoy talking to you. Join us for dinner. And Jesus broke the bread and blessed it for their supper. And suddenly their eyes were open. And they're like, Jesus, it's been you who's been walking with us all along. He disappears. And then after he meets with all the disciples in the room, they go out to a field just outside of town, and he blesses them and prays for them. He rises up, and an angel appears and says, Jesus has gone away from you through the clouds, and the next time he returns, through the clouds. Just amazing. Too good to be true. And so what I take from and would love you to walk away from is there's two big messages I see in here. One, and they're both for you, for us. One is when do you meet the mysterious stranger who's the message from? Often we say there's angels among us. That one time that I was like so desperate and it was terrible, and this person just came out of nowhere and they had the thing that I needed. They had the word that I needed to hear, the hug that I needed to have. That person in your life who comes and then disappears, appears out of nowhere, disappears forever. I invite you to look for those mysterious strangers in your life who are the hope, the magic of humanity, of the divine resurrected. And also to remember that Jesus' story is your story too. How often do you go to bed one night and you think, the world has stopped, the world as I knew it is over. Sometimes even a few days later, in a cloud, you wake up. You're so alive. And I wonder if ever that was Jesus' reaction. Of course, he knows everything and everything was fine, but did he ever just be like, whoa, it worked? And that is the message for me when I go to bed with the scales on my eyes and I can't see the way forward. It won't always be like this. But if it's not a happy ending, then it's not the end of the story. And a few days later, my eyes will open. I'll still be alive. There are still occasions to rise to.
Beautiful, Rusa. Thank you so much for our stories this morning.
Dear ones, I invite you now into this reverent time, sharing the joys and the sorrows of our gathered community. If you would like to, you can place a hand over your heart to be able to listen from a heart-centered place. As Bridget places stones into a bowl, I will read aloud the joys and the sorrows that folks have shared with us. For our people online, you're invited to share your joys and sorrows in the chat that we may hear from all of them. This morning, we share a joy from Michael Scott, who's proud to share the news that Magid Dijkstra, a research scientist that Magid Michael, research scientist at Facebook and his former PhD student, has been selected to receive the 2022 Dijkstra Prize, the world's highest honor in the theory of parallel and distributed computing. And if you want to know what that is, Michael's over there to ask him after the service. The prize will be awarded this coming July in Salerno, Italy. What an honor. Oh, dear ones, this morning we share a joy from Emma Berry, our office manager. So happy to have connected with my birth mom and just met my little brother yesterday. So much joy in my heart. Emma, Wow, congratulations. What a big deal. We share a sorrow this week from Steve Searles, longtime church member. My wife, Clara, died this past Sunday. A viewing will be held tomorrow from 4 to 7 at Jennings Funeral Home. All are invited to attend. And I will also share a stone of sorrow for the English family and the loss of Maria English, whose memorial service we held here yesterday. It was a beautiful and tender gathering, so many tears were shed. It's holding Maria and her loved ones, those who loved her. We will drop one stone into the bowl for all of the joys shared by our online community. We'll drop one stone of sorrow into the bowl for all of the sorrows shared by our. Let's drop one first into the bowl to represent all the joys and sorrows left unspoken in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts. May all be held in the heart. This morning, as we do every Sunday, we light a white candle to acknowledge that we are a community affected by the grief, the loss, the fear, and the hope of living through a pandemic. We hold, especially this morning, the rising rates of transmission in York County. May this candle's flame hold our experiences around this horrific disease, and may its light be a beacon of hope and a reminder that we are not. Dear ones, I want to invite us into a moment of prayer. Center yourselves in your seats. Allow your shoulders to roll down from your ears. Place your hands softly in your lap or by your side. Close your eyes, soften your gaze, however it feels comfortable. Let's take a deep breath together. What a story is bringing us here this morning. The joys, the sorrows, the griefs, the gratitudes of our hearts. For the experiences we share of belief and disbelief, let us pray. Spirit of the doubting heart, the skeptic, of the full-on believer, show us a way this morning. Guide us in our ways of questioning, bringing the fullness of our hearts to this community. Teach us to be honest about the doubts we feel. Help us to stop pretending. Call us to voice our hurts, our joys, our reactions, and the questions we can feel uncertain, unsettled, and the questions we hope to find answers, guidance, support. Open our hearts large enough to share with another. Open our hearts large enough to be honest with ourselves. Open our hearts large enough to hold multiple truths. Open our hearts to our own liberation. In the stories, at the shared tables, in the deceptions, the moments of betrayal, the suffering, we know that life is fair. Teach us how to be true to ourselves. Teach us how to love one another through the stories. Teach us how to be next to those with whom we disagree. Show us a way forward. We pray this morning for the health and safety of our community. pray for more honesty, more doubting, more discernment. We pray in this hour for the comfort of being amongst those who know us. In the breaking of bread, in the stories shared, in the doubts and disbeliefs, may we truly feel connected to our common humanity. This morning, we will enter into silence together, holding in our hearts many questions, many doubts, the pieces of our lives we know we must be honest about. Let's share silence together. Preservation, through the worship, spirit of life. We invite you to sing these words. Our reading this morning is at the tomb by Molly House. Weeping may last for a night. Weeping may last for 1,000 nights, but joy comes in the morning. That morning we went to our beloved teacher's tomb. We went to anoint his body. We carried oil and cloths. We came to the tomb in sorrow, heads bowed low, but hope does not die so easily. It flickers inside. buried somewhere deep. Hope grows, blossoms like a rose, even through stone, even in hearts frozen by grief. When we arrived at the place where he lay, we dropped all that we carried in wonder, in fear, to see the tomb laid open and our beloved gone. "Do not weep," said the man. "This morning we rejoice. Love lives. Hope lives. Jesus is not here," he said. "Come and see. He is risen. Our beloved is risen. Our hope is risen." Can it be? Can it be? It is these stories in the Bible that have often been hard for me to believe. All of the healing Jesus did, some of those miracles, it feels like a lot of that can be explained, or perhaps written about, dissected, and discerned. But these stories, seeing someone who isn't there, hearing voices, and yet Easter comes each year. These stories are told again and again. It comes, and hope is here. The hope that perhaps all is not lost. The hope that someone these disciples thought to be dead is perhaps not dead at all. The hope that this great teacher, Jesus of Nazareth, can continue on in the stories being told about him, in the remembering of his teaching, in the hearing of one's own name spoken from his lips, surrounded by angels, with a strike of lightning, sitting at the table once again. I can appreciate the disciples who do not believe, those who were there to witness his death, those who saw and heard him cry out in pain before he died. Especially the two women who so believed he had died they were prepared with oils and spices and props to make Jesus' body ready for burial. I can relate to the disciples who do not believe Mary Magdalene, who dismiss her as perhaps crazy and just not accepting that Jesus has actually died. In my mind, they say, "You are too sentimental. Are you sure you're just not imagining things? Perhaps you only saw and heard what you wanted to see and hear." I can relate, because in general, I am a pragmatist. I believe in real-world things. I use my senses as proof of what exists. I feel most comfortable relying on the tangible, what can be seen and felt and proven and researched. Was Jesus' body removed from the tomb by robbers? Or perhaps Joseph of Arimathea, the man sent into the tomb to prepare his body? Looking to the linens in the tomb. As the disciples arrived, I see the desire for proof that Jesus' body is gone. I see the desire for certainty. But I know in my heart of hearts that there is more to this world than meets the eye. I know in my heart, and I know it in my guts. I know it in the intuitions I feel blessed to receive about what to do next and where to go next. And the intuitions that help me to say what I say from here, from this pulpit. And the intuitions I meet about people I meet and who they might be or how they might act. How do we explain that gut sense? And how do we deny it? In listening to the voices of the disciples in my mind, I can learn to deny an intuitive thought. Perhaps I'm just making a big deal out of nothing. Perhaps I misheard an unkind word spoken by someone else. Perhaps they did not intend to be hurtful. Perhaps I'm making it all up. I wonder if you too have had those voices in your head. Was that truly Jesus walking with us, or just a hopeful vision? Maybe even the wind, or seeing his face in a stranger's eyes. Was that him at the table breaking bread with us, or was it just the memory of him, written onto our hearts? A vision we cannot let go of in deep grief. I sat with a family yesterday, whose wife and mother and sister and daughter and grandmother had died. What I heard during the service over and over again was the phrase, "I can't believe she's gone." She was so young. She had so much more life to live. Common for us, for those of us who have known a loved one to die at a young age. Increasingly common in these times of pandemic where so many have died too early. I can't believe she's gone. She was so young. She had so much more life to live. This is what our brain does to protect us. We remain in disbelief to protect our hearts from reality. We do our best to remain hopeful that perhaps this is all a dream, that perhaps the reality is not actually real. And I would never deny anyone their right to engage reality in a way that feels healthy and right to do so. I would never begrudge anyone whose loved one has died the essential stage of grief at the top of the list: denial. It is a healthy and common reaction and response for all of us. But I'm going to say, I do not think these sightings of Jesus come from a sense of denial. No, I think this holy day, this observance in the Christian liturgical calendar, this time to celebrate resurrection, asks each one of us here to actively make the choice to suspend disbelief. I think this time of year asks us to believe in the things we before now thought to be impossible. And in truly believing in the impossible, we are transformed. In truly believing that someone could appear who was not there before, we can come to remember things we had forgotten. We can come to know this world on a different level. I wonder if you too have ever felt the presence of another when you were alone. I wonder if you too have known people close to death who begin talking to people, or perhaps seeing people who are no longer alive. People they know that they are seeing and talking to in that moment. I wonder if you too have witnessed someone in the midst of a mental health episode and recognize that what is going on in their head as they are talking to someone else is absolutely a reality for them. There is no arguing with that reality. There are only ways to befriend that reality, to be alongside people. I wonder if you too have seen things happen right before your eyes that you never thought possible. This week, I have been reflecting on what a miracle it is that we are here in this space and online for Easter. If you know your first Universalist recent history, when the pandemic began in Monroe County in mid-March 2020, we were believing we would be back in this sanctuary in time for Easter 2020. Yeah, but God's got jokes on that one. It was a hope that I and our staff, and probably you, held onto as we pivoted and learned all kinds of technology that we did not really know about before. And here we are, worshiping both online and in person for our first Easter together. There were times when I thought this was not possible. And here we are. And I'm so grateful for it. Hope still lives. Suspend disbelief, even if just for a moment, just for a day. On this day and in this week, we cannot forget the hopelessness of the tomb. We cannot forget the moments of hopelessness we have experienced and the companionship, the words, the future ideas and ideals, the intuitions that brought us out of that place. More is possible. Transformation is possible. Suspend disbelief. Out of a self-protectiveness, I know ways too of not wanting to give in to hope. What if I will be disappointed again? What if I open myself up to the possibility of being hurt again? This is what fear can do to us. This is what trauma can do to us. Today we live in the hope again that those who we have loved, who have died, still live on inside of us. Today we live in the hope that invites us to listen for that voice inside that has truth to tell. Today we live in the hope that we can be transformed. I want to share a story with you all. About a month ago, in early March, I was out walking on an unusually warm day as my heart was grieving. I was grieving the loss of a relationship in my life, and my mind was racing about what I could have done, what I could have said, things I wished to change. I imagine the disciples in our story had this kind of monkey brain thinking going on as well. What could we have done or said to stop this death from happening? It was an incredibly windy day in early March, as so many of our unusually warm days are here at this time of year. So windy, I felt the wind shift my body a bit. For a moment, I wondered if I was going to be blown to the side along this walking path. It took me out of my head for just a moment, and it helped me realize where I was and what was happening. The wind was carrying me. And as I allowed the wind to carry me, I give thanks for it. I walked along and gave thanks for the earth along the path. I drank water from my water bottle, mind you, and looked out onto the Genesee River, knowing the river was there to hold all that I was feeling. And I picked up a stick. In that moment, it looked to me quite like a wand, a symbol to represent fire in the pagan tradition in an earth-based way. I took this stick into my hand and I stopped at the water's edge and looked towards the sun, allowing its warmth to cover me. I asked how it was that I could let these thoughts go. How it was that I could be at peace with what had happened. And I intuitively knew in that moment the stick I held in my hands that I had picked up needed to be broken and thrown into the river to have a tangible way to release the grief. When I brought the stick up to be held between both of my hands, it was already notched in the middle. No way to explain it. But to break it in half was easy. All I had to do was take the action. I broke the stick in two and threw it into the river, and as I give thanks for all the elements for joining me in this ritual, my mind quieted. I was able to enjoy the beauty of the trail once more. I felt some level of healing, some level of transformation in that moment. I would love to tell you that this was something I had planned and thought through and calculated and thought I was going to go and do, but it absolutely wasn't. This was an experience that was organic, that began with the strength of the wind and the wilderness willingness to listen. I was honestly surprised by it all. Continuing to walk, knowing that that was what I needed to do, I needed to hear. And in this way, out of this experience, I can relate to the disciples. I can relate to the hopelessness and the grief and the moment of thinking you are alone. And I can relate to seeing the person you need to see along the road you are traveling, or at the table where you are eating. I can relate to suspending disbelief and being open to an experience you never thought possible in order to be transformed, to remember, to be free. I wonder what stories we have here in this space. Moments when you were able to suspend disbelief, to listen for what you needed to do, to remember where you were and what was happening. May the hope of this day be yours. May you find space and capacity to suspend disbelief and to be open to what you thought could never be possible. May you find companionship in unexpected places. Listen to the voices. Listen to your heart. Remember the teachings. Believe in the unbelievable. Happy Easter, first day of Christmas. Amen. Blessed be and may it be so. Our theme for the month of April is grace. And this morning we sing a hopeful song, Amazing Grace. I invite you now to rise in body or in spirit and join us in singing hymn number 206, Amazing Grace. Amazing grace, Please remain standing as we extinguish our chalice flame this morning. Let us read together the words printed in your order of service and on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but we keep its light in our hearts with its message of love and justice, taking it outside these walls to the world we live in until we are together again. I'll invite you to place a hand over your heart. Take a moment to look around at who is here with you. To be here together, to recognize where we are. For our folks online, to turn your view to gallery view, to be able to look into the faces of those who are here. We are companions to one another along this journey. We are those voices of support and encouragement for one another. May we go forth today knowing that we can be here for each other, knowing that we are carried by a larger love that holds us all. May you know first that you are loved, and may you go and be that love to whomever you meet. Amen. Blessed be. And And as we close our time, you are invited to sing along to our postlude. Alleluia, that's the only word for it. It's also hymn number 384 in your hymnal if you'd like to read along. Alleluia.